a bit of a dilemma I face when outlining a New West tour guide series is, if it's going to be proper lore videos, and it should, incorporate all the various events that have occurred over the years as Rifts has developed. And, the New West now and at the current state of the timeline is not the New West as it was originally presented when the New West book first came out, and all that kind of stuff. However, as I say, there's a little bit of a dilemma here, and that's the fact that there's a split in the timeline, and how the future of Rift's North America, and thus the New West, is supposed to go forward, based on whether or not you're using the original Rifts as writ, or if you're using the variation that is to be found in the Savage Worlds edition of Rifts. Now, in the Savage Worlds edition, I guess you could say the biggest difference is the Minion War is not really there. Calgary and Helllord Doom are mentioned, and I haven't seen the Atlantis book, but I'd be curious to see if Cuba and Helllord Shard is, or Overlord Shard is still in charge there, representing the devil side of the Minion War. But for the most part, that whole plot line has been downplayed. The Coalition isn't trying to recruit everyone to, stand as like the last bulwark against this double invasion of Earth, with all these other traditional enemies of theirs suddenly like on their side because, they're the only ones equipped to be able to fight off that kind of interdimensional, military onslaught. And all that kind of stuff, and the fact that, that this has kind of cheesed some people off who are already annoyed that the Coalition won the Tolkien adventure series, and now they get to be the good guys for all of Earth, with, Laszlo supporting them and stuff like that. Like, what the fuck? It's not that I don't understand why that kind of throws some people for a loop. However, when you look at the long-term tactical situation of North America, if you pull yourself back from all that and kind of look what will evolve over the next few decades without player character interference or dungeon master, game masters, throwing things in there of their own invention. If you're just looking at the pieces that are there in the book and how things go, leaving the Minion War out massively changes the disposition of things, and also the inclusion of the Tomorrow Legion as a concept I kind of believe is a bit of an error, because it changes Lord Coke's trajectory and what he's out to be accomplished. Ignoring the Savage Rifts, Lord Coke is trying to rebuild the Cyber Knights post-Tolkien by aiming them at Calgary and the Kingdom of Monsters in an attempt to whittle them down before they have a chance to, even get their Hellgates started up. And we're already working on that prior to the eruption of the Minion War, so giving them a slight head start on all that. Also, the Minion War, considering the fact that these are all demons and devils, they shouldn't be played too obviously a military force in that sense. They're still going to be manipulative creatures that prefer to work from the shadows and torture and humiliate and manipulate and control people more so than they are going to be wanting to be driving around in tanks made out of dinosaur bones and other kind of ridiculous stuff like that. If you want to run your Rifts campaign like Warhammer, sure, but there is a lot of ways to approach the Minion War that is more intelligent. By calling it the Minion War, where exactly who are the minions? The face of it for the player characters. It shouldn't be immediately obvious who's actually pulling the strings. It should be, various small kingdoms and mercenary groups and factions of all sorts kind of being manipulated behind the scenes. And it might take a while for people to realize that the Coalition and Laszlo's warnings aren't actually false at all, especially when you get out to the more, the open seas where you actually have giant devil ships and all that other kind of stuff. How militant and over the top you want to present the Minion War is kind of on you, but it alters the balance of power of what's happening in the New West as events will continue to unfold. The Minion War, does kind of provide a focal point that will allow like a lot of previously unattached societies to like band together and possibly kind of develop some sort of long-lasting alliance out of the ashes of all that will have to be required for humanity and its new DB allies to, you know, drive these nefarious infernal forces from the face of their formidably lovely Earth. And so, yeah, I guess as my videos go forward, I'm going to be presenting the Minion War version of things. The problem with like I said, with the Savage Rifts thing is that the Coalition, without the destruction of the Minion War, is just going to be focusing on its agenda of expansion. And even, you know, like the Magic Kingdom might make a lot of saber rattling, and the idea that we're going to have a repetitive war of the Magic Federation and the Magic Zone going up against the Coalition. I mean, we just had that basically. So why do that again? You know, I don't feel that's particularly taking Rifts anywhere new. If you're just going to have a repetition of the Siege of Tolkien, but now just from the east instead of the west, and you know, maybe this time the Coalition might be hurt, but then you're allowing Alistair Dunscan and his folk to fucking win. And you know, the Federation of Magic is a lie. There is no Federation of Magic. There's a couple different people claiming to be a Federation of Magic and a bunch of other completely independent city-states in that area that are just kind of lumped all in together. Also, personally, I don't understand why Ontario Peninsula isn't considered part of the Magic Zone too, because like right across the lake, you also have like a big area that's crisscrossed with lots of ley lines and has a bunch of big, huge magic cities all across southern Michigan, up through the peninsula and up into, you know, Canada and southern Ontario and shit. So like, I don't, you know, I personally, my own feeling is that the Magic Zone shouldn't be quite so United States centric, and also include its Canadian neighbors that basically just seem to be a continuation of the exact same, you know, blanket region of magic enhancement. I don't know. Like the Tomorrow Legion is placed right in the middle of the corridor that the Coalition needs to finish sealing up, even ignoring all like the wars against their immediate neighbors, which they can just pick off one at a time, instead of having their entire military like be drained off fighting off demon armies that even if they're successful, they're going to be like incredibly dependent upon their neighbors in order to be able to like not entirely collapse after that, because that's going to use up a lot of their manpower and technological assets to be able to win such a thing, which, you know, like in the long term leaves North America in better shape. Also, like it's going to be have a massive effect on the citizenry of the Coalition as they start to increasingly drop their stance about dealing with non-humans or magic users and all that kind of stuff in order to be able to fight the greater evil, and that's going to, you know, like massively undermine society-wide a lot of their, you know, prior proclamations about, you know, this and that being bad for the Earth. Whereas without the Minion War, the Coalition is just going to sew everything up, and the Tomorrow Legion has just put even more people right in the middle of an area that the Coalition is going to need to conquer because they want to, you know, sew their line of control up. Like, they can't just be having Arkansas and Texas floating out there in the wind like little islands disconnected. You know, also they want to maintain their control. Eventually they're going to have to absorb Wyken and then take out Kingsdale, and the Tomorrow Legion is going to go right along with them. And then just bit by bit, they can take out the Kingdom of Worth and then sew up the line between Arkansas and the actual part of Lone Star that they actually really control. Then they can leap on into the Colorado Baronies, pick off the various independent kingdoms within the Magic Zone off one by one. Like just one thing at a time. Without the Minion War to distract them, the Coalition in the long term will sew up control of most of the continent. So as I say, as I present these new West videos, which I guess you can expect the first one tomorrow morning at some point, I'm going to be sticking with the Minion War interpretation because personally, I think that actually is the better timeline. However, I'm going to kind of go with the more kind of middle ground approach of that. Demons and devils are still going to like naturally act the way they're intended, even if they're trying to be whipped up into a military force. Their natural inclination is to still, corrupt people and make them do their bidding for them, so they can be lazy and just feed off the glory of their accomplishments vicariously and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, I guess that's how we're going to be moving forward for here on that decision, and you can agree or disagree with that however you want. Until then, stay waspinated out there.